Hi Booktube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I'm here to do a review of The Door by Magda Szabo or Szabo. I don't know if this is one of those things where the S is silent or not, but this was a book recommended by Jen Jelinski. She reads a lot of Eastern European works, whether it's nonfiction or fiction. That's what she studies. And I watched one of her videos where she recommended literature from that part of the world, and this was one of them. This takes place in Hungary after World War II, some like 10, 20 years after World War II. Our narrator is a writer, and her name's not ever revealed to us until, the only reason why I knew her name is because, of course, it does say her name, which is also the author's name, Magda, on the back description. But her name is only said once, and by the other main character, and I think there's a reason for that. I think there's a significance to that. So our main character is a writer. It's her and her husband, and they are looking for a housekeeper to clean their house because they're so busy with their own careers, and with her being a writer, and I think her husband is like an architect or something. And they are recommending this woman called Emerence, this elderly woman who is very efficient and really amazing at her job. And she has very unconventional methods in how she does things. And normally, of course, in this kind of situation, the lady writer would be the boss, but you see throughout the story that it's the woman they hire, Emerence is her name, that she kind of has a little bit of power over this couple and almost the whole community. Like, she knows everyone in the community. And her relationship with the lady writer is very complicated, very messy. She sets her own rules, her own schedule. She does things a certain way. She is very efficient and good at her job. And she's very hard and very, distant from them. But it's the point where the lady writing, gets extremely frustrated with her. And things come to, the tension slowly builds between them. And at one point, the lady writer and her husband, during the winter time, find an abandoned dog that they take in, but is actually Emerence who becomes attached to the dog. She ends up being the one to take care of the dog. She walks him, she feeds him, she gives him treats, she's always the one paying attention to him, she spoils him, which frustrates the lady. That's another thing that frustrates the lady writer, because the dog won't listen to them. And when I was reading the book, I found that kind of amusing, because it made me think of our relationships with our dogs, and how I didn't always, the only time I ever actually actively took, not that I didn't do anything with our dogs, but the only time I actually did the walking them and feeding them, all that kind of stuff, was when my parents were out of town and they were taking a trip where I didn't come with them. And then I was the one who was responsible for the dogs. And dogs are loyal to whoever spends time with them, whoever feeds them, whoever, takes care of them, walks them, is with them 24/7. And one of our dogs is very attached to my dad, and our current dog, it's all about my mom. So I found that very relatable to that experience. Now, I get it, I'm not as, my dad and I are not as, how dare our dog get attached to my mom, like the lady writer is. She feels threatened by this and is, gets really annoyed by this. We understood it. It was kind of more of a joke that our dog was, that was my mom's dog. We knew we knew why, and we accepted it. And, it was still, sometimes I still get my feelings hurt when our dog would greet my mom very enthusiastically, but, would look at me, give me attention, but then would be like, where's mom? Where's my mom? But other than that, I didn't get as angry as this woman would. But one of the things that I love about this is the relationship dynamic between the lady writer and Emrys. How messy and complicated it is, and how there's respect between them, and there's love. Love develops between them, a mother-daughter affection. Like, Emrys sees this woman as like her daughter. There's something like at one point. So her nephew is close by. I don't know if he lives in the I don't remember if he lives in the same neighborhood or not. But when the lady writer and him are talking, he does point out that Emrys sees them as her children. Like, she ends up getting them like a bunch of stuff, a bunch of junk, like old stuff that to most people would look like trash, but to her is treasure. She gives it to them thinking that they'll like it, but they don't actually they don't. They think it's junk, and they try to get rid of it. Like, at one point she gets them this dog with a missing ear, this porcelain or plastic dog or whatever, and they both, the lady writer and husband, try to get rid of it, and it hurts Emrys's feelings. She gets mad about that they treat it. So when the things that the lady writer values, Emrys is like, for her it's hypocritical that they would not like the dog, because the things that the lady writer values, for her it's not. For Emrys, it's silly for her to value those things. So why would she think that this dog that Emrys thinks holds value why she wouldn't care when she's willing to keep things that aren't as valuable in Emrys's eyes? I don't know if I'm making any sense. I'm trying to make sense. I'm trying to explain it in a way that makes sense. But so it's a very interesting relationship. And I think the lady writer is probably the only one who really has some understanding, like, sees through Emrys's coldness, her hardness, her determination to do things her way, how she's so distrustful of, like she would probably be an anti-capitalist, put it that way. And she doesn't trust, she doesn't trust doctors, she doesn't trust banks. And of course, we can only assume that she probably was someone that had to survive in the war, survive the Holocaust. I mean, I think she's Jewish. I think she is Jewish. And it's you can, and if I'm right, then she probably has developed these habits when she was younger. And she's like, there are a couple times when she gets sick. There's times when she gets sick and the lady writer tries to get her to go to the doctor, but she refuses to. She also refuses, like I said, she doesn't trust banks, so she refuses. She has extra money that she refuses to give to the bank to keep for her. And she also will judge, like I said, our other main character is a writer, and Emrys sees this as, it's not much of a job. It's not, she judges her for this profession. A job that doesn't require hard labor is not really a job. So she's very dismissive. Like when the lady writer goes to conferences to talk to people about her book, then she's like, what's the big deal? For her, it's because it's not physical labor. It's not demanding physical labor. It's not a job. It's not as important. It's just not a big deal. Because her dad, I believe she said her dad was a carpenter. And it's also, like, at one point, the lady writer does go back to where, has to go to a conference in the place of Emrys's birth town, and she does try to get Emrys to go, but Emrys, of course, is, like, adamantly against going. And she meets Emrys's family, and she kind of starts to realize why Emrys is a little bit of the way she is. By interacting and meeting this family who, was kind of, doesn't seem to care about Emrys at all. And there's a lot of distance between Emrys and her family that the lady writer notices. It's also interesting how, like, Emrys kind of wins over not just the dog and most of the community, the neighborhood, but she also, like, the lady writer's husband really likes her. Now, I think that's partly because she takes care of him, and he likes that. He really appreciates that, that she takes care of him, that she nurses him, that he doesn't have to do a lot. And I think that's the only reason why he likes her. And there's one point where everyone that is interesting, where everyone kind of thinks of the Lady Writers being unfair and unkind to Emrys, in that she's like not helping her out. She's not, kind of is responsible for something that happens to Emrys. And eventually the Lady Writer does start to blame herself for that. It's also you get throughout the story, like, you never get the whole Emrys' whole backstory, but you get bits and pieces of it. You learn a little bit about her as a person. And she kind of explains, like, one of the women in the neighborhood that's the same age ends up killing herself. And Emrys, she is very sad. She is a bit judgmental of that because, because that's not how she feels, how she would do things. She thinks it's the coward's way out. And, she has no sympathy. Like Emrys it takes a lot to get her sympathy from her. I mean, because she is, again, like I said, it's her way or the highway. She's very cold at times. Because, the Lady Rain tries to get her sympathy for this woman. Like, but she's like, no, she had Emrys doesn't understand why this woman would do this to herself, why she would kill herself. She also doesn't trust churches. That's another thing that Emrys does not trust, is the church. Like, she has a belief, and there's a word for that where people, I can't remember what it is, but a word for those people who, they believe in something. They believe there is a higher power. They don't believe specifically in God, for instance. But they do believe there's a higher power, and I think that's how Emrys is. She doesn't like organized religion. She thinks they're all hypocrites. They're all trying to control you. Like I said, she doesn't trust them any more than she doesn't trust the doctors or banks. And she thinks the Lady Writer's beliefs are silly and ridiculous. Like, the Lady Writer is a church-going, well, like, she goes to church, and I don't remember her religion. I don't know if she might be Catholic, or Baptist, or something like that. But she does try to get Emrys to go to church at one point, but it doesn't work. And I said, there's like and there's also, another, it's such a, like, a complicated story, a complicated dynamic. It's not super long, but it's such an engaging story, and just, Emrys is such a fascinating person. There's things about her that you're not gonna like. Like I said, how she responds to the one woman who kills herself. That's, I think a lot of people would find that cold and cruel of her. And she's can be very unkind, and I found myself feeling bad for the Lady Writer, who, granted, the Lady Writer can be selfish at times, and the things that she gets mad about, you just want to tell her to, it's not that big of a deal to, as we say today, chill out. That you don't need to, just be a little more understanding and patient. But then again, there are also times when I can understand, like I said, her frustration, her anger, and just not understanding this woman. And like I said, her dismissing, just because it's not physical labor, that, because, I am someone who there has been times where I wanted to write novels, and I've heard of writers and dismissing their work because it's not physical labor. I don't agree with that. But yeah, it was interesting to see this relationship evolve. And like I said, there is love between them, but there's also, and there is respect, but there's also this tension between them. This, it's not an easy love. It's almost love-hate between them. They just, they don't always agree. They have arguments and they get mad at each other. But I think in a way the lady writer is afraid of Emrys, because despite the fact that she looks like a little old lady, she is a force to be reckoned with. She has power over this whole community. She is very opinionated and has a strong will, and there's things about her that she keeps close to her heart that she doesn't reveal to anyone. I mean, eventually I think she does trust the lady writer with some of those secrets, but she doesn't tell her everything. And she's hard to read. Like, you don't know if she cares and has compassion or not. And like I said, she just comes off cold, but she's also like engaging to read about. And you want to know her story. And you only can guess, because again, you only get bits and pieces of her story. But it's such a simple, and and it gets kind of, and it's such a simple story just about this friendship and learning about this woman's story and getting only a little tease of this woman, of Emrys' story. But it's definitely really good. I enjoyed reading a story set in a place that I've never been, that I don't get to read. I have not read a lot of books from this story, from Hungry, and I do want to read more from this author because I definitely enjoyed her writing style and what she created here. This very bittersweet story, I feel like. So those are my thoughts on The Door by Magda Szabo. I hope you check it out. No pressure, of course. If it doesn't sound like your thing, it's not your thing. But please, I hope you guys do consider checking it out. I hope you like this review, and I will talk to you all later. All right, bye!